Today, I'd like to look at a game by Alexander Morozevich. It's probably one of his first games that made him famous. It was played in the Moscow Rapid Chess Tournament in the Kremlin. Um, he was playing against Anand, and let's keep in mind at that time Anand was pretty much the second player in the world. He qualified to play against Kasparov, the World Championship match, and Morozevich was uh, I think he was about 16 or so years old. So he was very young, and he was and he qualified to play in the final stage of the tournament through the Swiss qualifier, and then he made it to the second round to play against Anand, and Anand was a huge favorite to win in that match. But in the first game with the white pieces, Morozevich played the King's Gambit rather bravely, the Bishop's Gambit, and Anand responded with this line where he, established his pawn in the center. And I'm not a big expert on the King's Gambit, so I won't go into big details here. But I'll just look at this middle game position where basically Black is holding on to the extra pawn, and Morozevich tries to build up some initiative. So, for example, right now he is probably threatening to chop on f6 and just get great compensation for the exchange. And Anand blocks the f file with knight to f5. This also hits the queen, hits the d4 pawn. So this is, you know, logical. Now Morozevich retreats to f4, and now he still maintains the pressure on the f file. So Black just finishes development and strengthens the d pawn. Um, Morozevich realizes that the bishop on d2 is not doing very much, so transfers it to b4, and this is consistent with his idea of putting pressure on the f file, along the f file, because in the end this rook is defending f7, and that's where Morozevich in the end wants to strike. It doesn't seem relevant right now because there's two knights on the f file, and there's Black has four pieces defending f7, but we'll see why this matters, because after rook f to c8, Morozevich goes with g4. That opens his king, but at the moment this isn't very dangerous because he controls the center fairly well, and this king is not in danger just yet. The knight has to retreat, and now Morozevich just mobilizes the pieces, brings the last piece into the game. His pieces are placed really ideally, A lot of the time people get caught up in some little minor details. They try to win a pawn and so on, but a sign of a really strong chess player is that they bring all the pieces into the game. This is somehow an indicator that 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 the chess player has graduated from the basics, and that he has a good sense um, for the middle game in chess. So of course all the pieces have to play. If you're down a pawn, you have to use all your pieces. Now Anand puts the knight on e4, a centralized square, um, and now Morozevich plays an interesting move. He sees that he's kind of that his bishops aren't really going anywhere. Black has established some kind of central blockade, and and if white does nothing, Black might consolidate, um, and the initiative will basically evaporate. Maybe f6 isn't possible yet, but maybe down the road this will be possible, and then white's pressure on the f file will go into nowhere. And also Black might want to expand on the queen side with something like a5 and just disturb the bishops. So not wasting any time, Morozevich strikes c4. That undermines this very important pawn on d5, which in turn supports the knight on e4. And that's why after takes, he willingly sacrificed the second pawn, and now he's um, well, now he wants to take on e4. Here, black had a subtle move, queen to b6, that would attack the d4 pawn, and that was basically the best way to continue. White would have to, struggle quite a bit here to find compensation. But in a rapid game, it's natural that Anand just retreated with the knight, and now Morozevich kicks it with g5. And this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier, that the pressure on f file, it's actually relevant, because now, well, he's threatening to chop on f6, on d6, distract the queen, and then maybe even to take on f7. But that might not compensate for the 2 pawns that he's now behind. So after g6, Morozevich has to come up with something probably better than just taking on d6 and taking on f7. And he thought for a few minutes here. He had about 10 minutes. He thought for about 3 or 4, leaving not much time on the clock, and he came up with a sacrifice. Well, a double sacrifice. He sacrificed on g6 with the knight first. That, takes a pawn. Now this knight is attacked, so he takes back. And now another piece sacrifice. Bishop takes again, threatening the knight, and again black is forced to deal with this immediately. And when he takes, white regains one of the 2 pieces immediately. He's also hitting both d6 and g6, so that's very bad too. Anand here thought for a few minutes, but he couldn't really come up with anything, because, well, there isn't anything really to defend everything. He just has a choice. He has several choices between equally lost positions. What he came up with was queen to f7, and the hope is that white might, fall for something like take back a piece, and then in the end game, black might have some chances to survive, say after rook c6, defending g6. This wouldn't be entirely clear given that both players are low on time, but here Morozevich realizes that his chances in the situation in the game are in the immediate attack against the king, and his pieces are placed so well. His rooks are much better than the black rooks, and that's why he plays queen to d5, just hitting the queen with the rook. He is hitting this knight again, so this knight is dead for sure. And then he's also threatening rook takes on g6, because the queen will be pinned, and this would just be a catastrophe. So Anand is hoping to, save both the queen and the knight. So naturally he goes knight to f5, but this is met with another shot, which isn't entirely clear. It seems like it's very tempting to just take on g6, but Morozevich found something much better that forced immediate resignation. He took on f5, and that is just devastating, because, well, there's really nothing black can do. After rook f5, the idea is that if he takes, then g6 forces just complete disaster. It wins immediately, because the queen can't really go away, because then all kinds of discovered checks would just completely win for white. And for the same reason, he can't take with the queen here in this position, because, well, then just double discover check just wins everything. And then, well, when the king goes, white just picks up an extra queen. So because of lines like this, Anand realized that he's completely lost here. He's down on material, and his position is collapsing. The power of the white rooks along the e and f file really showed its strength in this game. So a typical Morozevich game, where in positions where it seems like initiative isn't going anywhere, he just finds extra chances. Opens up his pieces, opens up his bishops, finds all kinds of pawn breaks with moves like g5 and c4. And when the time comes, um, you know, it may seem like the sacrifice is like simple, while just take double, a natural sacrifice on g6. But the point is that Morozevich had about five, he had to play all these moves in about 5 minutes under enormous pressure, and once uh, like once he goes for this sequence, he has to find the attacking very precise moves like queen d5, and rook f5. He has to find them basically within seconds. So within seconds, he banged out, starting from knight to g6. He banged like 4 or 5 exact, precise attacking moves, and against one of the most resilient players in the world, and that's not easy. And keep in mind there was like 1,000 people in the audience watching this game, so he was also under a lot of pressure. And to play like this, when you're under a lot of pressure, time wise, and just in terms of the tournament situation, I mean, it's just it shows that the player has a natural gift for attack, for tactics.